right, guys, welcome back. Boots Come in Pairs. We're talking to John Schenning again, who we haven't talked to in about 37 episodes, but it's good to get him back on. We won't make him talk too much about the White Sox. We can talk about some good, hearty baseball stories, but again, nice to have John back on with us. Starting us off tonight, this is new news in the last couple of days here. But Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred, the aggressive Manfred as we're kind of seeing, chose to opt out of the ESPN contract. I don't know if you guys saw that.
I did.
Essentially putting an end to Sunday Night Baseball, all these kind of things. Baseball tonight was very prevalent during our youth. Their coverage has kind of slipped and drawn down a little bit. What do you guys think of that as kind of an end of an era situation?
It makes me a little nostalgic growing up with baseball at night and going into Sunday Night Baseball on school nights or in the summer and watching whoever was playing on Sunday night. Granted, I don't have ESPN on my cable package now, so I don't watch the Sunday night games. But it surprises me a little bit, but also not, because ESPN, I feel like, has slipped in their baseball coverage to begin with. I'm glad, Fox has it when it comes to postseason and TBS, because you get a little bit different perspective. And a lot of those guys on ESPN have gone their own ways and have left that organization. And, it's kind of gone downhill ever since then.
Yeah, their coverage has been lackluster, to say the least, the last couple of years. They've definitely chosen a lane with hockey for some reason, which is weird.
Right.
They're really diving into that category. One argument that I heard from Boog Shambi today, who is on The Score, ESPN employee as well. He does Sunday night games. He does random games for ESPN. Made a good point. The only thing you're missing with ESPN is the national attention. ESPN draws eyes, right? I would agree that, MLB Network is doing, if you have the MLB Network, they do a great Baseball Tonight like show. Their content is phenomenal. However, it's not accessible to mainstream. Most people don't have MLB Network. So that's probably the one pitfall, especially that hearing it from someone like Boog Shambi, who's very candid, very open about stuff. That was probably the one thing I'm like, oh yeah, that's probably the one thing you're missing.
Mm-hmm. So, question to both of you: where does baseball media go from here? I mean, it's an interesting question, because obviously I had not heard the news that you were just talking about MLB parting ways with ESPN, and obviously, like John was saying, Fox and TBS have really done a really great job when it comes to postseason stuff and big games. When you have those big series, like we have the Tokyo series coming up. Covering stuff like that, they've been great. MLB Network has been awesome. Love the panels. Love the different people they have. It's been cool to see some of the writers kind of go out on their own and do their own thing too, kind of breaking after they've been let go from ESPN, the insiders. But where do we go? I feel like even like local networks are struggling as well. Like, where are we going to get to watch baseball consistently? Like, I have the MLB TV app, and it kind of sucks because I get blacked out of certain games. I feel like you shouldn't get blacked out of anything. If you don't have cable, you don't have cable. So if I wanted to watch the Tigers, if I was in network for the Cubs, if I wanted to watch the Cubs, or if it was a nationally broadcasted game and I don't have cable, I can't watch it. So like, where do we go? What does the future of baseball media look like?
You bring up a good point, because the local networks here in Chicago, you got to pay a premium to be able to watch the Cubs and now the White Sox, although I don't think you want to pay a premium to watch them anyway. But it just, Manfred, wanted to expand the horizons of baseball and appeal to the younger crowd, and now you just took away a giant portion of that. Especially the younger crowd, which their family probably has cable and has ESPN and has access to it. And now you just took away a big part of national baseball coverage. I don't know where they go.
Right.
Yeah.
Does Fox maybe try to scoop in?
I
a
mean,
little bit
it's
more?
gotta, someone has to pick it up. Like
Well,
baseball is becoming more of a hot commodity. It's starting to become more exciting again. The young stars, all the just knowledge and stuff surrounding it. Like someone is gonna grab it. It's my opinion, just in general, that ESPN's content, the quality, the production, it's all dropped off big time. The days of the big time show and the big time anchors are done. And I think they kind of pissed it away. I think they had a golden ticket, a golden opportunity, and they just didn't realize what they had. And now they've lost it, and they've lost market share. And I kind of equate it to Nike trying to branch out too much when it comes to their footwear. They started out as a running company, and they gave up some of that market share to produce or to pursue other markets. But now you have your Brooks and your Hoka and your On and all your other brands that are capturing the running, more of the running market. And Nike's now trying to get back to their roots. Like, hey, we're a running shoe, we're a running company. Like, how do we get the market share back? But it's almost like it's too late because these other areas are already, they're already there.
well, Ryan, I think you hit on it before you even asked the question. It's so spread out now. Like the media is so spread out. Every player has a podcast, and I'd rather listen to former players talk about the game sometimes than some of these anchors that never played. Like, yeah, ESPN used to have, Harold Reynolds and John Kruk and all these guys that used to play, but even the content we view in terms of games, like if you have the MLB package, you can watch every game. If you really want to watch every MLB game, you can, barring blackout, in network, whatever. Baseball Tonight wasn't special like it used to be. That used to be the only place you could go to watch the highlights. Now you can get them anywhere. You can go on Instagram, you can go on Facebook, you can go anywhere you want to go. You'll see the stuff you want to see. And the Sunday night game isn't even special because it used to be like, oh, that's the one time I'll see Mike Trout this week. It'll be on Sunday Night Baseball. They would never show him on Sunday Night Baseball because they don't show their highest grossing player. Why would they do that? But that used to be the only time you'd see, Yankees, Red Sox. They'd always throw on Sunday Night Baseball. But now you can watch Yankees, Red Sox whenever you want if you have the MLB package. So it's just so accessible. And I think that's probably one thing ESPN realizes. It's like, hey, this isn't special anymore. And it doesn't feel that way because again, their broadcast reflects it, their coverage reflects it, and the interest level. I mean, they go heavy on NFL, and I don't blame them.
Yeah,
and they're all in on hockey because they want to try and bump that up. Four Nations was great.
That was awesome.
Great coverage of that. For a tournament that didn't mean anything. And it was like, wow, but it felt special, right? So yeah, they just
But it was like a mini Olympics, and I didn't watch much of it, but I did watch the championship game, and that was just wild. Like so cool to see two giants facing off overtime, like hitting each other, like really no whistles blown. I mean that is what the hockey world needed to get the jump start and get the eyes of the world on it. I mean, baseball is going to have their moment soon. I'm anxious to see what it is. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see who covers it.
When it was like the World Baseball Classic that they did, was that 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. That was awesome.
Right.
That was on.
Fantastic.
I think that was on ABC for some odd reason. I feel like the championship game, or Fox. It was probably on Fox, but it was a national televised game, and it was a great sense of what baseball can be. And it's not every game, but it's kind of like hockey. And not every hockey game is 2-2 going into overtime with the game-winning goal scored by the best player in the league.
Right.
Like Shohei versus Trout at the end of that baseball classic.
Exactly. That's what you want to see. And if you have the right eyes on it, you could have an entire new generation of fans who become just enamored with what the game is.
Well, for the baseball-y people that liked Baseball Tonight and all those things, the MLB Network does a pretty good job. They do a split screen on most nights. It's fantastic. So I would argue, there's better coverage out there, but it will just not be in the format that we're used to seeing. And I don't think it'll be as nationally. I'm sure ESPN will still do baseball highlights. I don't think they're eliminating that portion, but I think they're literally just stepping
erase
out.
it off the board.
Yeah, no highlights at all. We don't show that sport because
Right.
they canceled our contract.
I don't know. Web gems was still fun. I mean, you can see, like Brandon, you were saying before, you can see all these games and these highlights on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok. You can see highlights whenever you want to watch them, but just kind of getting the take, like, hey, these are the top 10 plays, these are the web gems, and you're waiting for that program, for that segment to come on, or like the big flies, and you hear Berman in the background. It's just like, it was just fun stuff. It was fun stuff. We'll never forget it. There'll probably never be anything like it again. But I guess that's what we have YouTube for.
It is. It's a lot more instantly available as we'll kind of shift over to spring training, because this was one thing I saw for sure, and we'll get into the new rule change and stuff. But PCA stealing 3 bags in a row, those are the kind of moments, again, we don't need to wait till Baseball Tonight to show us him stealing 3 bases and going home and doing amazing stuff like that.
Right.
Spring training, though, first and foremost, the biggest highlight of it is the ABS strike zone.
Yeah.
Like, dislike, where are we at with ABS? I know where I'm at.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel, but I think we're all destined for the umpire strike zone, or the computer umpire strike zone here soon. And this is just another step towards it. I remember seeing something this earlier today. It was like, oh, this was our closest review we've had. And it was, the box and the ball was like,
right.
barely touching it. And they're like, we don't really know what to call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so far, flawless, absolutely flawless. It just, the first couple of reviews may have taken a couple seconds because the umpire's not used to getting his pride challenged constantly. But man, is it just, it's game changing. If you have a pitch that's controversial, I mean, I know, again, they're not carrying it over. Council's been very vocal about not wanting his veterans to use it because it's not going to be part of this year's game. Terry Francona, same way. But I think it's a game changer for the way umpires will call games, because they have to be better. They just have to be better.
They have to be better. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that will be, and I like those little intricacies, and I like guys working on their craft, and just like the receiving of the baseball by the catcher and stealing strikes. That is just intriguing to me. I think that's a skill that you have to work on. I feel like you're doing that to help your team. It's something that you would do to give your pitcher a better chance, to get him out of an inning sooner, to steal a strike, to deceive the umpire, or not really deceive, but to just make it look like a strike. I hope that art doesn't get lost. But it's not like it's going to be like an every pitch thing. No. It'll just be like hey, I didn't think that was a strike, and I'm going to challenge it. So it's going to have to be used strategically.
Don't play that funeral too yet, right? Because, I mean, you're right. They can't challenge every pitch. I don't think the system would be, let's just go completely robotic umpire, where the umpire just calls everything that's in the box. Like, you're deceiving the hitter. You're deceiving the bench that's going to be screaming for the review, That's who you're still deceiving. You're still deceiving the umpire to a certain extent. But those crucial pitches that are like 2 feet outside Angel Hernandez strike zone, that's what you need out. Like, a lot of these reviews, it's like, man, that ball missed by 6 inches. What was this umpire doing? Like, the left and right, very obvious. Up and down, not so much. But left and right, you got to get those ones. And especially a 1-1 count, 1-2 count, strikeout pitches, ball 4 pitches, those are the important ones.
Right.
Yeah. I guess I didn't realize. I didn't know that they weren't carrying it over to the regular season. So I didn't realize it was such a test.
Yeah. Last season, AAA had it.
Okay.
I would guarantee that this is going to be a 2026 rule, because it's so compelling. It's so good. But yeah, it will not carry into the regular season, unfortunately. But I think umpires know this is coming now, so they might have to really.
Well, I saw a comment saying finally someone's holding these umpires accountable, and it's the first out of the major sports that are. Yeah. I mean, you have reviews in other sports, but
right.
This is like an every play situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like the entire nation of fans holding the refs accountable when it came to the Super Bowl. It's like, well, we're all going to be watching, and we've all been talking about it. And there was not. It was a pretty clean game for the most part, and I'm glad that they swallowed the whistle.
I mean, and
times.
MLB just lost their most accurate umpire, in a gambling scheme thing. So,
oh, really?
Yeah,
I don't remember his name, but it happened a couple weeks ago.
Was it that Quinn guy?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up, but
Okay.
His friend was using an app, and then he was not betting on baseball, but he was betting with his friend through the app, and they caught him.
Okay, jeez,
Using
man,
an alias,
just stay away from that stuff.
Well, I mean, speaking of other sports using this technology, tennis has switched in the majors. So the smaller tournaments not as much, but the major tournaments have a complete ABS system. So they used to have, line judges down each side on whatever, looking at the lines. Now they just have a chair umpire who's looking at a screen. So you don't get Johnny McEnroe anymore screaming at the chair umpire. It's like, well, no. And they don't even make them challenge. If it's a close call, they just go to the replay, boop, it was in, it was out, whatever it is. You can't really argue with it.
Right.
It's a fair game now. You're not, the umpire, screwed me out of that one. It's like, well, we're so close to it because we already are reviewing first base calls. We're already reviewing, the sweeping tags. Oh, he swam around it. Cool. We're almost there. This is like the last piece. But I mean, if anyone hasn't observed this in a game, just watch any of the spring training games. You're going to see it because there's plenty of calls that need to be challenged. It's so quick. They're getting much better at it too. So, yeah, next year should be a lot of fun then.
Yeah.
Matt Hobert is his name.
Matt Hobert, yes. Yeah.
Pat Hobert.
Pat.
Yep, can't do that. Well, there's the guy a couple years ago we were kind of beefing up in the World Series where he had a really good World Series game. So there's still some good ones, but this will just make him focus a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Other big change, probably the hugest change of spring training, is the return of the nameplates.
Yep.
I don't know I didn't see if they figured out the road grays yet. I don't think there's a ton of road grays in spring training, but at least seeing, visible names on the back of the jerseys. Doesn't look like you bought a youth large
right
for Willie Adames over there at shortstop. I saw the Giants jerseys today. Aesthetically, it just feels like baseball again. I don't know. Last year we were going on about it, but it just looks much better. I feel more at home with it.
Right. Well, could not have gotten any worse. And for it to come out of the gate like it did, you have one of the biggest clothing manufacturers in the world, and they do uniforms for other sports leagues, and it's like, all right, well, we have this innovative technology, and it's custom fit to every player, and it's supposed to feel like it's a second skin, and like all these positives, and to just have it be a colossal failure like that, it's like, man, your name just gets tarnished. So they really, I hope that at least they look good, but I hope they perform like they thought they were going to perform initially. They gotta get this right. There's too much technology. There's too much testing. There's too much money in it for it not to be just first class.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's some new City Connect jerseys as well, but I just think restoring those things that were kind of weird, lowering the MLB logo, just look weird. I don't know what the point of it was. So that just kind of like, oh, at least they're doing the right thing and trying to go revert back to 3 years ago or before you switched to Nike, I guess, which is weird.
Right.
To say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember seeing a picture, I think it was today or yesterday, and it was like, oh, they look normal again.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, oh yeah, John, I forgot you didn't watch baseball last year. You didn't have to endure this.
Oh no, I still did. I rooted against a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hate watching.
Real talk though. How many White Sox games did you actually watch last year?
Well, I went to one within the first week.
Okay. Well, there was
that's so hard to tell because I didn't watch them at home. If I watched them, it was out.
Sure, background noise or whatever.
That's tough to say. I mean, probably. I mean, I'm paying attention to the game cast on ESPN if I'm
Right.
not watching it, no
Okay,
matter
so you're
what.
still well. That you know what? Because you're a diehard
I mean,
fan.
I'd
That's
probably say I watched over 30 just based on not being able to be out, or if I'm out or not being able to watch them.
Right.
that's
Your
more than
finger was still on the pulse.
you're still paying attention. They weren't paying attention.
No, no.
Well, fortunately for John, it can only get better. I don't know. Actually, I've seen some of the spring training stuff. I mean, just let Colson Montgomery play, But
Right.
we'll get there.
Right.
Last time me and Ryan were talking about Rob Manfred, and just kind of his legacy, and I think a lot of these other things kind of tie into it. It's kind of been a confusing. I'm a little more conflicted about his legacy than I was maybe a couple years ago. Or initially, it's like, man, this guy's horrible. He's doing horrible things to the game. Now it's kind of like, man, he's tinkering, but I feel like he may be one of the best commissioners in baseball. He's already said he's not going to renew his contract. He's going to run this one out and whatever. What's your opinion of his legacy in terms of, I mean, he's done a lot of changes, but also the current state of the game, I would argue, is as good of a product as we've seen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
I love the pitch clock. I mean,
Yes.
Granted, it makes me drink my adult beverages quicker at baseball games, but it's amazing though, because you'll sit there and you'll go, it's the fifth inning already, and you're sitting there going, it's an hour and 15 minutes, and it makes watching the game on TV a lot more appealing. Granted, it didn't bother me, but when you watch like when Mark Burley pitched, that game would be done in 2 hours. You'd be ready to go.
He didn't need the pitch
clock. You have to be paying attention to every pitch because it was so boom, 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 boom. As far as his legacy goes, I think it's still kind of up in the air for me. I mean, I think, like Ryan was saying earlier about the blacking out the games, he's been a big reason about that. And, wanting to entice the younger population and get those younger kids back into baseball. And that's where he's trying, but I still think he's got some ways to go. And I can't think of any like right away, but I think he's just got one more little step to bring baseball back a little bit more.
Right. Our biggest thing was the impending lockout in 2026 when the new CBA is up for discussion. Brandon and I kind of pointed to that as what could be his defining moment. Like this he's either going to be, and not like he really has control over it, but if they can find a way to avoid a work stoppage, when the next CBA comes up, if they can really find a way for the owners and the players to like really meet, and because I mean, there's not been many sports leagues that have gone on strike or had stoppages as much as Major League Baseball. I feel like that's one major sport where it's like they just can't seem to get the players and the owners on the same page. But yeah, I mean, there was a while there where we thought that he was going to be a disaster. Like, there's not many people who liked him much. Then he started making some changes. People were like, "Oh, well, you're soiling the integrity of the game." But then the game kind of became more fun. At the same time, I've really liked the changes. I like things that are being proposed. I will say, Brandon, though, I think that like baseball in like the 90s and the 2000s, that was a fun brand of baseball too, with Selig leading it up. That was fun, man. The steroid era was fun. I mean, come on, man.
I agree. The batting averages were up. The pitchers were throwing hard, not this hard.
They were throwing hard, but like I'm watching. I mean, Sammy Sosa has been fully embraced by the Cubs organization again. He's in the dugout with players, people are going to him. They're asking his advice. They're trying to like soak up as much knowledge as they can. Like I know Kevin Alcantara has been he's been like a little fly on his shoulder, like just buzzing around Sammy, trying to get. But it's like Sammy Sosa. I looked at his stats today. Like the guy was a freak of nature, and there were so many freaks of nature. They were so strong and fast and powerful. Not to say that today's guys aren't, because they are. But a different brand of baseball, and it was fun. It was so much fun.
Teams that go again. I understand the stigma around Sammy Sosa, around Barry Bonds. These guys are incredible hitters. They also have a ton of charisma, a ton of swag. That was something Sammy was talking about, because every day I feel like I'm seeing a new Sammy clip. They have the microphone in his face and he's talking because he loves the attention. But today he was talking about the confidence part. He goes, I was confident from day one. He goes, but I'm talking to some of these prospects, Alcantara, another kid he was talking to about hitting, and it's like he's talking about confidence. He goes, yeah, you got to have this. This is the mindset you have to have going in. Say what you want about what he did that everyone else was doing during that entire era. We see them all. The all-star lineups from all those eras, they're just jacked. It's just part of it. And they're all hitting 340, and they all have 60 homers. But you know what? They're all also really good hitters. So if you're not using that, those are the teachers that we're missing for some of these hitters in the game right now. So not embracing, John was clapping for me, not embracing these guys is a miss.
And these kids love it. They love talking to these guys. I don't know where they were, but James Triantos was in the same dugout as Ken Griffey Jr. And I saw an interview with Triantos, and he starts talking about, I saw Ken Griffey Jr. and this is a guy I looked up to my entire life. And he said I would kick myself if I didn't go over and talk to him at least for 5 or 10 minutes and just have him say something to me that I can take with me and help me advance in my career. Like there's every era has its guys, but I feel like, like the 90s and the 2000s, like those guys were just rock stars. It was so much fun.
And you just got to listen to the guys even just talk, like you're saying, like Ken Griffey, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa,
right?
Whatever. Say what you want about that era, but you still have to have a good baseball swing.
Right. Well, I mean, people used to say all the time they'd have David Ortiz and A-Rod on the call, and it's like, oh, I don't want to hear these guys. I want to hear them talk. I want to hear Alex Rodriguez talk about hitting for 40 minutes. I want to hear David Ortiz talk about how he shined in the biggest moments. I want to hear that stuff. Yeah. All they do is talk about the good old days. Well, they were the good old days. They were the great old days. And those are two of the best hitters ever.
You look at what Fox does during the postseason. It's A-Rod, Frank Thomas, David Ortiz, Derek
Frank Thomas as well, man. Frank Thomas was unfreaking believable, like superhero. I don't think people really understand.
Pete Rose.
What's that?
Pete as well. I mean, just like, again, you get the best players. When I would push that even to the other side of town, to the White Sox. Where's Frank Thomas? Where's Paul Konerko? I know, again, there's a stigma around, but like, these are your guys. These are the guys that, AJ Przinsky's, doing his thing, but he loves the White Sox organization.
He does.
Even though they suck, even though they don't treat him well, even though they tell him to leave, he loves that organization. Eventually, when they finally get rid of this owner and they sell the team or they move the shares enough where he's not a part of it, you can start doing these things. I mean, I think, again, John, was kind of alluding to it. You waited way too long to bring Sammy back in the building. So what are you waiting for? These are the guys that can help you.
Right.
Yeah, and Frank was in the post-game stuff, and it's the comments, and I know Jerry doesn't like them, and he may not pay attention, but he hears them through the grapevine, and they've actually tried to get Konerko, but like his kids like in travel ball, I think, so he's been that's where his focus is, which I get it. Like Frank's closer too.
Yes,
Frank lives right down the road, so.
Yeah. The unwillingness to not use Frank or Ozzie Guillen because they say bad things about your franchise that are accurate, and they're really criticizing the team and your decision making there. Sorry, ego check then, right?
The owners don't want to hear it.
Right. Well, and Ozzie was another guy, man. Ozzie was fiery, but he lived and breathed White Sox baseball when he was the manager. He got that team going. He was probably one of the better managers they've ever had. Like you just gotta, when you don't have a lot of gems, you gotta take care of them. You gotta take care of the ones you do have, and hopefully they can figure it out.
Well, that could also be part of going back to Manfred a little bit. That could be part of his mantra too. If those are one of the things, I didn't really think about the blackout thing. Maybe this ESPN bridge here is the culprit to get rid of the blackouts. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They have 2025 to kind of figure it out. They still have ESPN as a partner through this year. But yeah, I would tack that onto the list of the CBA. Get rid of the blackouts and maybe being more inclusive of these steroid era players, not having a stigma against them. The Hall of Fame thing, I don't know if you're going to get past that. I think there's maybe, okay, here's another one for you, Rob. Change the way you vote for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Don't make it 6, because I'm sorry, who was the snub this year? Ichiro, who didn't have unanimous votes. Take that guy's vote. Like, it's silly things like that. So there's still work to be done, but I think one thing we can say about Rob Manfred to this point is he's willing to try things and make changes. But yeah, I agree. There's still a couple things out there that you'd like to see.
I want to know the average age of the Hall of Fame voter.
Right.
I mean, I actually just went. I finally got to see it in October, and seeing like the McGuire and Sosa jersey like together in a
so cool.
case, it's just like take me back. Like that's I'm sure you guys agree. That's when we fell in love with baseball and fell in love with the game, and it was exciting. It was on TV. It was advertised.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame is cool. I don't know if you've ever been to the Louisville Slugger Museum. That is also very cool. Oh my gosh, it is so neat.
They can put those things in Cooperstown, but they can't elect them to the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. Right. Like Pete Rose's. I don't remember what it was. I was actually there the day he died.
4,200 hit ball or whatever.
It was. I think it was his cleats. There were there, and it's like, okay, you have that in here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But you don't have them in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right.
Gosh. Yeah. Well. Again,
you touch on a good point there. Like if he has any say and to be able to change some of that, that would be a big step up for me because
it would.
Like, how do you not have? Let's see, your all-time leading home run hitter, your all-time leading hit leader. There's probably a couple other ones I'm not touching on, but yeah. It's crazy.
I'm sure you'd win favor. Yeah, I'm sure you'd win favor with most players and most fans. I don't think there's a lot of guys who are like, oh no, Pete cheated. Like whether you say you were clean or not, I mean, I'm sure you weren't completely clean. It's about staying on the field, and most people can't do that at a 162 game clip plus the playoffs without having a little help. You need something. Back in the day before steroids, they took controlled substances. Like that's not right either, but they still did it.
And I was trying to remember this. I don't think Manfred will ever touch or lighten up the Pete Rose thing because I just looked it up and I remember him saying like he has no intention of altering the lifetime ban.
No, yeah, he was very adamant. I mean, I think Pete Rose wrote him a letter every year looking for reinstatement.
Right.
One other topic that me and Ryan touched on, but I would like John's opinion as well. And this is something that Manfred definitely was aware of, but also stated that the Dodgers and the way they're running their business right now, he understands the concern, but they're doing it within the rules. They're not breaking any rules with deferring money, with the amount of money they're spending because there's no salary cap. But also the tone in his voice was that maybe the rules need to be changed. So I guess add this to the list as well. What is your opinion? I'm sure you'd like a Dodgers type ownership for the White Sox. What's your opinion of the Dodgers' overall organizational construct and what they're doing to baseball?
So I think you guys touched on it. I remember seeing the clip of it. I don't remember who said it, but somebody said they're not breaking any rules. And fans can be mad all they want about it, but yeah, you're 100% right. I would want my team owner to be able to just shell out money or figure out a way to make these contracts. Granted, do I think it's going to cause some backlash against the rest of the league? Yes, but there's nothing. Okay, some limits with the money are preventing some of these teams to do this. But
Mm-hmm.
what's stopping these other teams from trying at least? Like, I feel like some of these teams aren't even throwing out these contracts to some of these players. And there's no one to compete with the Dodgers. The Yankees could, but even the Yankees haven't been the Yankees like they were 20 years ago. They're not the ones picking up all these players. Are they not trying, or is there reasons for it?
Mm-hmm.
I think, in a couple of years, things are the CBA is going to alter some things. And if Manfred can find a way, and I don't like the equaling the competition, because you could have 15 of the top 100 prospects, and in 5 years, you're the worst team in the league. So it's a teeter-totter. You got to be able to sign the right players, and you're not going to be able to sign them if you're not trying and you're not putting money out there. Yeah. I don't think the Dodgers are doing anything wrong, and the people.
Well, I think the tough thing is that even if they were to agree to some sort of cap, I don't think there's any world where the player or the players would agree to make less money in order to make that happen. We're only going on an upward trajectory, and you're getting some of these bonkers contracts like Juan Soto got and what Shohei Ohtani got, and it's like they're only going to keep going up. And I just don't see in any world where a hard cap is gonna be something that Major League Baseball and its players are interested in doing. I think the ownership group might be open to it, but I don't think the players would agree to it. Which again, you don't have any. There's no other sport where you have free reign to do whatever you want, and you get a slap on the wrist, and you have to pay a little bit of extra money if you go over the threshold. Everyone else has to operate within a budget. That's why that cap is what has kept some dynasties from continuing on too. So because you physically you're committed to your players. This is the money you're committed to. You got to get really creative if you want to make something work, or some prospects have to work out, or a trade has to work out. I don't know. Well, it's tough.
The crazy thing about baseball too, and this is why certain ownership groups get away with it. There hasn't really been a true dynasty in baseball, other than the Yankees were always kind of hanging around. But like even this Dodgers team, they've been spending this amount of money for the last decade, and they've won one legit World Series
and a Mickey Mouse World Series. Yeah,
one legit, one with an asterisk. But like that's all they have to show for it, and they could go out this year. I mean, we saw it today. Roki Sasaki got blasted by Kyle Teal. So congratulations, John. You got a prospect there. But like
give him a year.
Yeah, no, I know, no. He'll be fine. But like,
I'm honestly, John. We'll get to some of this White Sox stuff, but that Teal trade upset me a little bit. I know Crochet's young and he's got a little bit of control and all that stuff, and he's an outstanding talent, but. The Red Sox big 3 or 4 prospects that they have. I mean, Teal was right in the middle, and he's a special player, and he'll be up this year. He's good both ways too. That was fun for me to see. Not only because it was against the Dodgers, but I like this guy. I like Kyle Teal. He's a really nice player, and he's gonna make some noise.
Yeah. Back to John's point though. I was going to say, I mean, you may not be in on the Juan Sotos, but the White Sox need to get out of, we need to trade Garrett Crochet because he wants a contract now. They could have signed Garrett Crochet. They could have signed Chris Sale. They didn't have to trade these guys, but they just operate in this bubble.
I mean, when you don't have a player, when Andrew Benintendi at $80-something million is your highest contract in the history of your ownership or your franchise. I mean, DJ Moore got signed to a $100 million contract before a baseball player did. 4 baseball player did in Chicago, and DJ Moore was here for a year.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about what the Dodgers are doing. I wish the White Sox would do it.
Right.
I don't even care if it was a $150 million deal. Do it.
He's doing a smart thing. He's looking internally for his struggles.
Yes.
One thing before we get to John's beloved White Sox, we have a couple of points on them. The top 100 baseball players list was brought out by MLB Network, who is now covering most of baseball. Mike Trout was a little disappointed with his rating on the list. We've seen this with the NFL where players get very involved with the ratings. I don't really see too many people commenting on this from the baseball side because most of them are focused on spring training. Do you think that's a fair assessment for Mike Trout? Should he even be in the top 100 based on the games he's played the last couple of years? Does he have a right to really even complain to be at 39? I thought that was a little high, honestly. But what are your...
Isn't it wild that we think that Mike Trout being at 39 is too high? Like, that is just crazy. To think that we're saying that and believing it. Somebody who was the face of baseball 5 years ago. I mean, on track to be one of the best players, if not the best player of all time. Mickey Mantle comparisons constantly, but I really wanted to pull up a list and kind of go through with you guys player by player and be like, all right, is he better than him right now? No. Is he better than him right now? No. I didn't do it, but I mean, I would include pitchers into this list as well, which is probably the case. It's probably not position players. It's probably top 100 players. I think he's pretty accurately rated. I mean, from a skill standpoint, are there some players who are ahead of him in the rankings that he's probably better than? Yes, but it's what have you done for me lately? He has not played in 150 or more games since 2016. The next closest, I believe, was like 134 games, but most of them have been like 100, 80, 30, 50. He has like 11 All-Star appearances, and 2 or 3 of them came in seasons where he played like 40 games. It's like, why is he even getting an All-Star nomination? It doesn't make any sense. Like, he played more games during the pandemic season in 2020 than he did the following season, I believe, 2021. There was 1 year following that where he played in less. He played in 53 games, which is probably most of the games during 2020. And then, he played in like 30 or 40 games in a year following that. And he got an all-star vote or an all-star game vote, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of going through my head, like, team by team, like, which outfield would I take, Mike Trout, or would I take this current outfielder? And it's probably up to almost 10 before Mike Trout even pops into my head. And like you said, Ryan, and we touched the points on it, but to be a good player, you have to be available too.
Right.
And it's kind of like what the NBA is doing. They have to play in a certain amount of games before you can be an MVP, which not a bad solution.
The Dodgers probably have 10 guys on their team who are better than Mike Trout right now, based on availability and games played and off just talent in general. Like,
I mean, this will answer the question for comparing him to other players. Would you, if you're building a World Series roster, is he on it? No, because he's not going to be there in October. He's not going to be healthy enough because he hasn't been there. He hasn't even played into August, the last 5 years, right? So his talent is immense. Last year it was kind of a bummer because he looked like himself. He was stealing bases. The way he slides is like effortless. He's a great center fielder, now right fielder. I mean, the talent is undeniable. The durability is extremely questionable, and that's a big
part of the game.
Well, a couple years ago, I think he played. It was maybe like 90 games or like 113 games, and he had 40 bombs and 80 RBIs. Like, he was just on a torrid pace, and then he was down. He had some kind of minor injury, or what seemed to be a minor injury, which turned into a major injury, and then he's done. And this is somebody who takes care of their body. Like, he doesn't eat processed foods anymore. He doesn't consume any sugars. Like, he's taking care of himself better than he ever has, but he can't stay on the field. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, I've made it a point because with every sport, like I've seen Giannis play for the Bucks. I've seen Mike Trout now. But like you want to see the best players in every sport play their game, right? How many Angels games have we attempted to go to that by the time we get to go to the game, he's already out or he's not playing that day or it's happened at least three times to
I've
me.
never seen him play. I've never seen Trout play.
And we've been to Angels games, not for lack of trying, right? It's just it doesn't happen. So.
Okay, I think that's what I was trying to remember in 2022. That's the season you're talking about, Ryan. I think he hurt his back at the end of in August, so he lost on the end of those, the whole month of August and September.
Right.
Luckily, I've seen him play, but it was like the second week of April, so he hadn't gotten a chance to get hurt yet.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Well, maybe I'll keep my eye out for an Angels game on the south side and hopefully catch him early enough so I can at least see the guy play once in my life.
Hopefully Ryan noticed at first base too.
He might be. We'll see. He does.
Yeah. Well, actually, I saw it was 2017. I saw because Ohtani had Tommy John, but he was DHing. Could you imagine if those guys were on the same team, how good they would be? Ohtani and Trout. I mean,
yeah, and Anthony Rendon.
Can't imagine.
They were both. So yeah. Ohtani was DHing, but so yeah, I saw a Trout and Ohtani game in like September, and everyone was watching the Bears, but it was a Sunday. But like that's it. That's the only time I've seen him play, and I think he had a hit, and that was about it. So yeah, it's a little baffling. But yeah, at least it's not Anthony Rendon. That's the worst contract ever in the history of sports.
Yeah, and I think, like Ryan touched upon, getting compared to all these greats and then to be riddled by injuries. I mean, it's like you got to look at LeBron. Like that's what he's never really been hurt ever because he was this big dude to begin his career, and then he slimmed down because he probably realized, hey, I can't do all this. And does that affect Trout with how he works out and how he takes care of his body?
Right.
Baseball's a little different, but
right.
Yeah, what makes him special though is when he's stealing bases and doing those things, it's incredible. But that's probably why he's still getting hurt too. And you hate to be that fragile about him, but it's like, all right, we need you on the field. Maybe stop sliding. Maybe stop.
I mean, you look at Bryce Harper. Now he's playing first base now.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you need these bats in your lineup, and you would hate to put him at DH because he is such a spectacular outfielder, but he's kind of shown, even like Aaron Judge last year, you get hurt in center field, you get or he's just not good enough out there, but that's a different.
Right. Well, I mean, they switched him to center field because they wanted him to avoid injury, which he did, but then he dropped the
ball. He hurt his
drops
ego.
the ball. Yeah.
Fifth inning.
Hurt his pride a little more.
I was okay with it, but I wish there was another team on the opposite end.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So the other news this week coming out, Justin Ishbia, if I'm saying that right.
Ishbia.
Ishbia.
I think it's Ishbia.
I think it's Ishbia. He has a family member that played at Michigan State.
Okay.
So he initially had interest in. He loves baseball. Apparently, yeah, he donated money to the Michigan State baseball team, like $10 million. He's like, this is for Michigan State baseball. Big baseball guy. He's part of the Suns ownership group. He's a billionaire. His deal with the Twins ownership group kind of fell through. So now he's shifting his eyes to the White Sox. That's what you want. I think that's what John's been waiting to hear for the last 20 years probably. Does that excite you at all?
I'd say maybe. Well, no.
I'd say maybe
the last 3 years. For the last 3 years, it's been more of that.
3 years, yeah.
It's eye-opening news for sure. It's hard to get the hopes up because Jerry's got such a tight grip on his teams, and just based on what he did to the Bulls on the trade deadline, I'm also like, I don't think that will to get rid of the nostalgia is ever going to be gone from him. And
he's lucky that he had what he had.
And I tell people that all the time. Everyone tries to come back at oh, he won the Bulls championship. I go, let's back up for a second here. But anyway, if it goes through, it's got to happen. I mean, it's got to happen quick. It can't be drawn out, and I think you'll see a lot of changes on the upper scale or the upper level of the Sox organization. You're not going to just fire this man. Well, you might fire the manager depending on how it goes again this year. I don't think it will go as bad as last year, but it's the culture has to change, and that's the biggest thing. And Michigan's. I just read this today. Michigan State's baseball team is ranked for the first time in so many years in the top 25. And granted, there's some obvious reason why, but the money helps. But the money also helps in college these days because of NIL, and the money's the person who's willing to spend money on the worst team in baseball history is going to want to spend money to make them better again.
Right.
One thing about
it's a pride thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to go to that historic loser, and you want to be the reason why they turned around. That's like I feel like as an owner, there's no bigger reward than to do that.
Well, what's the White Sox payroll right now? It's got to be less than $100 million, right? Maybe close to that. If you double that payroll, $200 million, let's just say, which an owner like this who wants to win again, he's part of that Suns ownership group. They didn't win an NBA championship, but man, they were trying really hard.
Got there.
They got there. Yeah, they got there. They were in the conversation.
And he made the splash. He went out and got this owner went out and got Kevin Durant. Hey, how can we get butts in the seats, and can we get a guy who can hoop? Let's get the best scorer of this generation, and let's bring him to this team.
An influx of that kind of spending, even if it doesn't make dollars and cents on the end on the budget, like, oh, we lost money this year. Who cares, man? I got $10 billion. What do I care if we lost $1.5 million, right? We took a shot at winning the World Series, and it didn't work out. Okay, next year, Steve Cohen, let's try it again. Let's buy Juan Soto. We didn't spend enough money last year, right? But that's what you need. And I mean, as a fan, that's what's going to excite you. Not Jerry sitting over there telling you how hard baseball is, and that my biggest contract is Andrew Benintendi, and we need to sell our best pitcher again for a bunch of prospects. That sucks, right?
Their payroll is between $60 to $70 million this season.
I was giving them way too much credit,
Those on the lower end of the league. That's the thing.
Triple it.
Right. But you gotta spend money, and I agree, John. It has to start at the top level, because when you start out at the top level, that's when you get all your key organizational guys in place. Your talent evaluation gets better. Your drafting becomes better. Your development becomes better. You're able to make some trades for some people when you have that. You create an environment and an organization and a fan base where there's buzz, where people want to show up to the ballpark on a Tuesday afternoon, where your weekend series are sold out, and it's standing room only. The White Sox have a decent park. They have stellar food. It's really not that difficult to get there, despite what people say. You could take public transit. They have plenty of parking lots. What they lack is just that swag and that development and just the buzz. If they can get that, they have a lot of the other stuff figured out. But I think with the right ownership group and the right guys in place, they can be a fun place. And as much as Brandon and I don't like the White Sox, we love good baseball, and we would go watch games if it was more exciting. If it was
in the third biggest market in the MLB.
Right.
In Chicago, not as a team. I mean, it's just, that's the other thing about everyone asking you, where they're going to move. I'm going, is MLB really going to want to take the second team in the city, but the second team out of the third biggest market in the MLB? Yeah. No, they're not going to do that.
Unless they see some promising market where, hey, we really need a team and we don't want to expand. That's the only reason I could see that. If there's this emerging market that needs baseball.
Get Miami or get Tampa Bay out of there.
Right, exactly. There's other teams that could move for sure.
I used to dig John because oh, look, the White Sox don't draw. Well, you know what? bad baseball teams don't draw. That's the nature of it. There are very few Wrigley Fields, Fenway Parks, Yankee Stadiums. That's the anomaly. We were at Houston. We were in Houston a year before they won the World Series, and there was 8,000 people in the stadium a year before they won the World Series. So if you have a bad baseball team, people don't go. It's not a knock. I mean, it's easy when I'm a Cubs fan. We draw when no one's, we have our prospects playing and we're a terrible team. Great. That's nothing I'm doing. That's just they just draw. But most bad baseball teams, Pirates, Brewers, when they're bad, don't draw. So if you want to draw, if you want to have a good time, you want to have a good team, you got to spend a little money, try to win a World Series.
2021 and 2022, granted they weren't great in 2022, but there was people in that stadium.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was
they were supposed to win the division. That's kind of how that was all going.
Yeah. I mean, 2021, I remember trying to go to the Sox Yankees game and you couldn't find it took us 3 hours to get down there.
Yeah.
Well, I would say with this Garrett Crochet trade, if you are able to get is Jerry 90 now? Did he finally turn 90 years old? I think his birthday was yesterday when they lost 15.
Birthday was yesterday. They lost 14-0.
Yeah.
So
yes, it was like happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Gerald.
Jared. With this hauling, because last time you traded Chris Sale, you got all these prospects, did nothing.
89.
Did nothing with it. But this time, I mean, same thing. You got the prospects. When you identify who the prospects are worth building around, then you go out and buy. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a simple process. You acquire prospects, you figure out who's going to be there, spend some money, build a winner.
I mean, it's like 2021. They signed up before, but you had the core, you signed Grandal, you signed some bullpen guys, you had the makings of the right idea, but they still didn't spend enough money.
No.
Right. You had one of the best pitchers in baseball, in Dylan Cease. I mean,
there's another guy. I mean, that's a guy I've never gotten rid of.
Bona fide ace when he is healthy.
Right. But he wanted a contract, John. That's a guy you didn't have to get rid of.
I can't even use my mustache bobblehead.
Solid Dylan mustache. Yeah, now he's got a full Grizzly Adams beard. I mean, but those are guys that weren't going to cost you $100 million, but they still weren't willing to give him a contract. And now they're pitching well for other teams. He had a great year for San Diego last year. And now San Diego's we're going to keep these guys and actually compete. Okay, cool.
And going back to the trade, I mean, I have a little PTSD of trading your star left-handed pitcher to the Red Sox. And well, the guys had those guys had a couple good seasons, and then that was it. And now I don't even know if one's on an MLB roster right now, and the other one is playing for the Dodgers.
Moncada, you talking about?
Moncada's
with the Angels.
Angels, yeah.
That's right. Okay,
this is crazy, John. I saw a video of you on Moncada, and Ron Washington's in Anaheim now, or Los Angeles. Yeah. They're in Anaheim, but you can call them the Los Angeles Angels if you want to. He's literally slow rolling the ball to Moncada and just teaching him how to receive it in his glove. I'm like, this guy's almost 30 years old.
Right.
But he hasn't played in 2 years.
They're having to break him down to the basics. And his fielding, as you've seen, John, for the last decade, his fielding is suspect.
I see. That was always what I was like. His third baseman actually wasn't. It was above average in my opinion.
His focus though was
It's the.
This was like 2019 to 2021.
Right. Yohan Moncada was the number one prospect in baseball when they traded for him. And it's been a lot of injuries, but him as a third baseman, I agree with you, John. Above average. I saw him. I think it was in whenever was it 20? Was it 23? 23. He made this play.
Yes.
It was like a slow roller down the third baseline. It was like a bare hand to rifle throw. To get an above average runner, and he got the guy by 10 feet. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that we're missing, and he was an exceptional talent, and you just wonder was he just in the wrong organization? Like I think of Andrew Vaughn as well. Like Andrew Vaughn was the best hitter in that draft, and he hasn't come anywhere close to what he should be. So you just wonder, like, are they just not good at developing talent, or not good at the just keeping guys in a good mindset? Like, I don't know.
And I think it was when I came on here the one time we were talking about that. It is the development that's in the minor leagues, and it's hard to say with your GM being the guy that was in charge of the development in the minor leagues as if anything changes.
Mm-hmm.
You could go through all the guys they have now, and what happens? I mean, They have like 4 catching prospects. I'm hoping one of the 4 pan out.
Right.
They haven't had a catcher. I mean, Grandal had one good year, but they haven't had a catcher since AJ Pierzynski, pretty much.
Right. And I think trading for Kyle Teal, like, that guy has the best shot. He came from a great organization, who had some of the best prospects in baseball. He was like part of that trio, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Kyle Teal, also with Chris Campbell, like the 4 of them. Like, that's the next new wave of Red Sox baseball. And I was a bit sad as a fan because I was excited for him to come up and do some damage. But Garrett Crochet is a really good pitcher. He's got a lot of potential. He's leading the staff now. So you got to take that risk, but I think something will hit. You can hope that Colson Montgomery hits as well. Like, he's got a lot of talent. Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, both of them power lefty arms.
It's just crazy to think that.
Very, very close. I mean, they could have 2 more Crochets within the next couple of years. But will they treat them the right way? Will they develop them the right way? Will they perform the way that they're capable of performing under the tutelage of whoever's leading them?
I think part of it too, I mean, when you have a young team, you need a really strong leader at the helm.
Or group of leaders.
But I mean, when you get to major league level, all these guys are talented. Like, when you were talking about the Moncada thing, we looked over, like, who was that guy? Like, oh, is it the new, like, oh no, it's Yoel Moncada. Oh yeah, he's really talented. He just doesn't always show it, or he's not on the field. But like, you think about the White Sox core that they built up, it was based on these young guys. Who's the veteran in the room? Who's the voice there? You know, Rick Renteria after that, not a great voice, right? Pedro Gaffol, disaster. Justin Turner today was talking about the locker room, and I know Justin Turner is 40 years old, but the Cubs right now have a really good locker room of just dudes though, like Dansby Swanson, great leader. Again, the average can come up a little bit, but defensively, you're not going to find a better leader than that. They've just built this clubhouse, and then again, the manager helps too. Council's been there, done that. He's a calming voice, but for the White Sox, like, who are those veterans they're tapping on? Andrew Benintendi is not enough, right? Because people are looking at him with his 200 batting average and like, why do I want to follow his example? He's never done anything. Like, did he win with the Red Sox?
Except, yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
But like,
Andrew Benintendi was a stud with the Red Sox.
Sure, but like, I mean, he's not that player though, right?
He's not that guy anymore.
He's not that player anymore. No. Not to take anything away.
But he was an all-star with the Royals too. I mean, he's accomplished, but he's not the guy who's leading. He was a really good, I don't even want to call him a role player because he was a really solid MLB starter for the Red Sox. Yeah. He was Gold Glove caliber outfield. I would say probably the best outfield in the last decade with Mookie and Jackie and Benny, the 3 of them. Yeah. I mean, he had a lot of promise coming up. He did really well in Boston for those first few years and did well with the Royals. But yeah, like Brandon said, I mean, he's not your grizzled veteran, like superstar that you would want to follow his example. Like maybe how he conducts himself, like, hey, he shows up to work every day. He works hard. Like he's a really good example for young players, but he's not Freddie Freeman. He's not Mookie Betts. He's not Bryce Harper.
And that's the funny thing. I mean, the funniest thing is I saw a video and it was people reading the White Sox roster and it's the scene from Major League when the construction guys are like, who are these guys? And, and then the ownership group is like, some of these guys are past their prime. Some of these guys didn't even have a prime. And I'm saying, man, this couldn't be any more accurate.
Right.
And I don't think that, I mean, can things get worse? I don't think so. Right? I mean, right?
I don't think so. I mean, you can like, right.
I mean, I still might bet the under on the wins total. I don't know. I mean, it's
Right.
like 60, I feel like.
If
Yeah.
that's 60, yeah. I mean, guys like Mike Tauchman, I like Mike Tauchman, but to that point, yeah, does he have a prime? He was a great role player for the Cubs, but he's not an everyday starter, right? He's not. He does not going to get 600 at bats, or you don't want him to get 600 at bats because it's just not his game.
Or maybe you do because he's never had an opportunity to get 600 at bats. Sure. Maybe we get to see what Mike does for them.
Well, I like the managerial hire. I think it's a shift from what was there, and especially with Venable being under who he's been under the last few years, and just the organizations in general.
Is Grady still involved or no?
Yeah, I don't know if he's officially the bench coach, but I know he's on the coaching staff.
Right.
Which I also don't mind because he's kind of that player coach that is player coach that I know knows what's happening in the game still today. And you picked a guy that won a world championship with the Royals, with Grifol, but that was 10 years ago. That was almost 10 years ago. The times have changed. Now you've got a guy who just was on the bench for the Texas Rangers 2 years ago. So and he's younger. He's not Tony La Russa. I mean, Grifol was older too, so he's on the younger end. And
but Venable's done his time. Venable has had a pretty solid pro career. I mean, he's got the pedigree doing that. He's been a bench coach. He's been every kind of coach that you could do, that you could be, and he's been successful. Like Will Venable is a very, very good coach, and it'll be interesting to see him as a manager. But I think that's a really good hire.
Well, and going back to Brandon's point on the ownership, if it happens, it's still going to take some time, obviously, but you're going to give the South Side a little bit more of the sun at the light. It's the lights. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You're not just going through the darkness for who knows how long. I mean, somebody sent me a message like, "Oh, well, it's not too much longer until we're mad at our baseball team every Sunday night." And I go, "Well, don't think I can get much more mad."
No.
And what I was last year. I mean, it's painful. I'm first, not that I'm just a White Sox fan, first I'm a baseball fan, and it's embarrassing to see that when a team is that bad to not even be able to win 50 games. I mean, 1 out of 5 games you can't win.
Right.
They're the worst team ever in the history of baseball. But I think fortunately you're kind of approaching this once-in-a-generational tipping point. I mean, Jerry Reinsdorf bought the White Sox in the 80s. It's been 45 years, right? 1 World Series. Again, that's more than some teams get. But if you get an ownership group, especially in this day and age, there's only 30 of these teams, right? There's only so many opportunities for these billionaires to buy teams. They'll jump at the opportunity. The White Sox is a good opportunity for somebody. And if it's this group, that would be, I think, an ownership group willing to spend the money. How could you not be excited about that? They're going to try and build a winner. But, yeah, it's going to take a couple of years. You got your prospects, and then you got to build up that next wave.
I really got a full circle moment when I'm walking through the Hall of Fame and to see how much Chicago White Sox history is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And
you sit here and go, how do you let this just go to how it went? I mean, I was amazed. They were probably the 3rd most artifacts team-wise in the Hall of Fame. Between the stadiums, the players. It amazed me, and I go, how do you let this happen to this organization after, 50 years of, not being awful, but being in the race for quite a bit quite a bit of the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of the trap sometimes. Like, oh, we're so close, but also so far. I think, and I know up here it's a little controversial, but the Brewers, I think, are in a similar situation where they're always like, oh my gosh, we're one step away. No, you're not. You're a lot further away than you think you are. And especially right now, the ownership group they're trying to squeeze out even further. Like, how much more can we save and still make the playoffs? They've signed nobody.
That's because they got a foundation to pay for.
Well,
Yeah.
come on, John. We our hard tax dollars paid for that stadium.
Right.
Now they want more money? No. But like it's so you know what? And I'm hoping this is the year, not because I don't like the Brewers, but I'm hoping this is the year it finally blows up in their face of like, look, you need to spend some money. You can't just expect everything to go right every single year like it has for the last probably 6, 7, 8 years. Like the Brewers have just been doing this with smoke and mirrors and not spending money. But that's not really a recipe to win a World Series. And eventually that's what you want to get to. So,
but it is a recipe to be competitive and make the playoffs. And one thing which is multifaceted that they're very good at is drafting, developing talent, and signing international free agents. Like they are so good, like Picasso at doing that. They just keep loading up. They have all these young kids with a toolbox full of skills, and it's incredible what they've been able to do.
Yeah, but that was
not win the biggest prize.
To
which
John's
is the
point, though,
ultimate
that
goal.
was the White Sox from like late 2000s through their World Series run till recently. Like they were a competitive team that would make the playoffs, and like, oh look, we got there. Okay, cool, and then bow out or whatever, or just not have enough juice to get all the way through. But like, without spending any money, really. They would just have their homegrown players or guys that like to be here, and then that was it. So.
That's interesting. I just looked it up. The Brewers only have 2 more contracts worth more than the White Sox have ever paid for.
William Contreras right now?
Ryan Braun, Christian Yelich.
Yelich and Braun.
Yeah.
No, Yelich and Braun.
Yelich and Braun. Oh, in their franchise history.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, they signed Braun on a discount. They signed Yelich for a long-term deal for now, like, yeah. And even currently, like, yeah, their payroll is minuscule. They're not paying anybody. So
well, and I'm gonna praise the Cubs for just doing the moves that they made this year. I mean, this offseason, it wasn't it was a splash in the water. It wasn't giant splash, but they made the moves. I mean, they're probably the best team in that division,
right?
On paper, yeah.
Or they saw that they had a potentially to be the best team in the division, and they went out and made themselves better. Like,
right. I don't see if they perform how they should, like they really did address some weaknesses that they had, and they added a superstar. Granted, it's only for 1 year, but Kyle Tucker's still Kyle Tucker. So if they can stay healthy and the team perform how they should probably win 95 games. I mean, honestly. That's the kind of they got a lot. They're very, very talented. It's just going to be about putting it all together, which they should be able to do with the leadership and just the skill at a lot of positions without spending a lot, like you were saying, John. Like they didn't really spend a lot,
but they made the moves that they saw, and they took it upon themselves to make those moves.
Right. They desperately needed to make the moves that they made. They needed to get like a superstar type player. They needed bullpen. They needed positional depth. They did all of that. And granted, you did trade away one of your best prospects, which we'll see how Cam Smith ends up doing. I liked what I saw from him the other day. I mean, but he's still a young kid, and you don't know if Tucker's going to be there, but it was a necessary move, and they didn't blow up the whole thing. Yeah. So,
and you needed to get rid of Patrick Wisdom and Miles Mastroboni.
So, no.
John, if the White Sox need some more depth, there's players out there.
Send them over. Yeah. Send them over.
You don't want to. Yeah. Well, they might provide a little bit.
I always laugh that, I think Chicago has the worst ownership in all 4 major sports combined.
They're losers, John. They're losers.
And the Cubs have the best ownership in the city, and that's not saying all that much.
I saw they took the major sports from the major sports cities, and they compiled the records of all of them. Just the major ones. The Chicago's winning percentage was like 483.
Not good.
Collectively, 483. This is loser town, and everybody is so loyal, and they show up. It's like, you need to stop showing up. Don't show up.
There you go. Yep. Don't worry, John. Well,
move to another state.
Just start with maybe winning a spring training game. That doesn't matter.
How about not going on a 20-game losing streak? That'll be the first step this year.
You know what? Though?
Twice. Well, almost twice.
There's some things that are really hard to do, and that's one of them. So, no, I don't know. You know, we'll see. If we need to, we'll do a check-in on John mid-season if it's going equally as bad. I can't imagine.
Oh, if they're as bad, I'll wear a paper bag over my head for the next interview.
Okay, we'll start a chant with the bag over your head.
I've already done that. I've already started a chant.
Need a new chant. Although I have seen potentially, this may have been a mockery, but it could be true. The T-shirt for this year is "We'll win more games."
I'd buy that shirt.
You buy that shirt? You can make that shirt. There you go. Just give you an idea.
I'll start. Is she ba?
Okay, yeah. Well, that's perfect. Well, again, it's always good to talk to John. Always love his insights on stuff. But yeah, if you're not following us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube page, hit all those up. We're up to 27 subscribers now on YouTube. Imagine that.
Woo!
Ooh. But more traction recently. But yeah, it's been fun to talk about baseball again, especially all the new stuff changing. And we'll keep on doing it.
I appreciate you guys having me. I do have to laugh when Nikki G was on the other day, and he was saying about Midwest weather and baseball, and I'm sitting there going, man, I remember in high school looking at spring break, and it's 30 degrees up here, and I'm playing first base, and a certain coach goes, hey, John, why'd you have a hand in your pocket while you were playing? And I almost wanted to say, because I can't feel my freaking hand. And I'm still sitting there going, I got my glove out. I'm ready. I just had my hand in my pocket. I don't got to throw to first base.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we can announce now officially the alter ego that was not allowed to be said has been released for the Timber Rattlers, the Wisconsin frozen pizzas.
Yes.
It's interesting. It is interesting, but they're running with it. It's a local tie, but apparently we eat a lot of frozen pizza up here. So
it's a great. I mean, the name doesn't really roll off the tongue. Awesome, but the graphics are cool. I think they're pretty cool. I think they did a good job.
Yeah, sell the shirts.
Yes.
But, thanks again for
in John's case, it would be the frozen hands, but
yes,
the Midwest frozen hands.
Yes.
In the baseball gloves. But all right, well, until next time, Boost come in pairs. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.